Okay, so here we are again, this time at the roundabout itself. So this was in a video that someone put up online the other day showing 90s infrastructure. It's actually put up by a guy, I think it was really a bus nerd. So he has lots of video of all kinds of stuff. So clearly he's more of a nerd than I am. I'm just doing this now, obviously. But I'm getting lots of strange looks, as you'd imagine from anyone taking a video like this in Bromley. Anyway, this roundabout's a bit odd. Basically, it has an attempt, possibly about 20 odd years old, of doing a segregated lane around the outside, but it's sort of mixed with an annular lane. The use of segregation is very, very suspect. The only way that cyclists really use it is like this chap going through to bypass the roundabout, for which it is absolutely brilliant. But if, like I tried to, you try and go around the far side there, you find that obviously you've got to lose priority. There's no way that this track's going to have priority over those roads. Even in a Dutch context, that would be, possible, only really if it's further back. But you look at it, it's got 2-lane entry, 1-lane exit. The idea of this kind of stuff is quite basic. It's so that when you're driving or cycling next to something as large as that, you're actually at a safe distance. You can see that for the track far left, that makes sense. That is a full-on articulated lorry, exactly the kind that's killed 5, maybe 6 people in London this year. You can see the no cyclist sign on the back there. Waitrose didn't know which one you were doing there, so I have to check that one out later. But you can see that most of the traffic here naturally is cars. It's a Saturday afternoon. It's really not great. In all the time that I've been here, it's about 20 odd minutes. You basically have seen only cyclists use this near side bit of segregation here, which does work. It's good. This is something that we can build today, we can build right now. It's quite easy. In terms of age, we know it's mid-90s, I think. It could be 80s. This is a 1-lane exit roundabout, as that guy is now demonstrating by trying to go 2-lane exit. That actually has forced someone into the cycle lane. But what you can see is actually a bit of a pinch point, generally. Actually, there's 2 cyclists coming up from the far side there, just beside that bus. They're actually going to go, they're going into the segregation, and then they're taking the left. So they're actually a bit like using this side here, they're using a free left turn. They're just avoiding the roundabout and keeping themselves in a safe space. By far, the people you see cycling around here are racing cyclists. There are a few mountain bikers or other locals, but not many. Cycling levels in Bromley are not massively high, which leads to the question of why on earth is this here? Now, there is a college just down the corner, and it the cycling provision sort of stops near the college, so it's not implausible that's what this was built for. Looking at the age of the signs, it does look very 90s, or sort of late 80s-ish. I don't think this is anything like GLC era, although I could be wrong. I haven't done the full-on check to try and work that out yet, and I'll do that when I get home. But as you can see, it's weird, because this clearly would not have been cheap to build. It's possible there was a chunk of spare land here. It's quite likely that this would have been something that even before the end GLC era, it would have been planned as some kind of larger road. Going that way, that's really trying to be a dual carriageway. The A21, which is the continuation of, is a dual carriageway with 2 lanes each way, actually when it goes through Bromley. And having done that, I can tell you it's not nice. But quite why this is here and what it's doing, who knows? Interesting comment. Well, possibly. Yes, in terms of it not really being designed for either the cyclists who use it, say, or the people who want to use it. And clearly, it doesn't work to encourage people who find this junction intimidating to say, oh yeah, I'll come and ride over this now. And it clearly doesn't work for people who are confident enough to cycle. In fact, there's a guy just down on the far side there who's dismounting to try and ride around, I think. Yeah, so you've got a classic example there of someone who actually dislikes the roundabout so much they're getting off. Or it could be the people I thought were possibly local campaigners I passed earlier who said hello to. Either way. But yeah, you've got this thing where basically you look at the traffic, it's mainly going in one particular direction. It's going north-south. The traffic is predominantly coming from up here, going out of Bromley, down there into Bromley. And really, at some point they would rather there were 2 lanes of it, and there isn't. So it's kind of 1 lane. It's quite possible the track that accompanies this further down is part of a narrowing scheme at some stage, because there's kind of visual narrowing, i.e. paint chucked in the middle of the road for that as well. It looks very 90s traffic calming-esque down that way. But the whole thing starts and stops very oddly. So if you go down that end, cycle track stops basically the second you get out the roundabout. Coming into it, there's a cycle track on the pavement for the whole, grand sum of coming about 20 odd metres, and then that's it. So it's impressive and yet not. It's impressive that this happened. It's not impressive because it's not the right intervention. It doesn't actually achieve what it needs to. Frankly, for the same amount of motor vehicle capacity, you could have chucked in a signalised junction and made something a bit nicer for cycling. Classic example of where having a roundabout isn't necessarily the best thing. And possibly trying to bodge in doesn't help. Now here's another cyclist coming in. You see, actually, at this point he stays on the road to avoid that lane because actually it's very hard to get into. Nigh on impossible. But again, he's going to use the bypass, which makes perfect sense because it saves you a load of hassle. Anyway, ordinary people are coming, so I'm going to shut up and put my phone away. But I hope you enjoyed this.